Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Today's topic, I'm going to talk about networking without networking events. I live in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio. I actually 20 some years ago bought a house that I converted into office space. It's a 100-year-old house. It's great office space, a lot of storage for stuff we don't keep at home. It's warm in the summer and cool in the winter. My wife likes to say. One of the best things about this office, however, is that there's a convenience store 2 doors down. It's a gas station convenience store. If you're in the Ohio area, United Dairy Farmers, UDF. So there's a UDF. They built it, 5 or 6 years ago. I can easily walk to it. It's great. So I never go without if I need whatever. So at any rate, one morning I was there, probably gassing up, doing whatever, grabbing whatever. We don't need to get into the junk food that I have. Little Debbie snack cakes, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm standing in line and the guy in front of me basically says, yeah, I'm having a great day. I'm going to pay for his coffee. He's pointing to somebody else. And he looked at me, and I had an armful of stuff, not a ton of stuff, but it wasn't just a simple coffee. And he said, I'm going to buy his stuff too. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't happen often. Sure, I'll go with it. Brought my stuff up there, ringing it up, and I just, this is great. Why are you having a good day? And he kind of remarked that he had a business, things were going well. Well, what's your business? And he pointed to the guy who was buying coffee for, was actually one of his employees. Guy turned around and he had a handyman business, which I thought was okay, great. People can always use handymen. In AmSpirit Business Connections, people are always asking for handymen. So I said, just give me your card. I know people who need handymen from time to time. I appreciate what you've done. And all he said to me was, I just want you to pay it forward one day. Don't worry about me. Just pay it forward. That's really neat. Give me your card anyways. Guy's name is Aaron Jordan. And so I got back to the office and I took a picture of his card and I did a post, told people the story of what Aaron had done. And a few days later, somebody said, hey, what was the name of that person? And they reached out to him. And I don't know what's come of this, but I've had a few people inquire about Aaron's information, which I thought was really neat. That, here we are. He's getting a payback for his good deed. He wasn't expecting it, but that's the beautiful thing about it, is that he wasn't expecting it, and that things will come from this. And so his name is, I assume, is getting out there somehow, some way. But I had sent him an email just explaining, what it is that I did, and if he ever needed help, that I would be happy to help him. And that was pretty much the end of it. What I found was that he was doing business with people out there. In fact, just a few weeks ago, he had actually joined AmSpirit Business Connections. I signed certificates for people who are members of the organization, and there was one down there for him, and I went ahead and I signed it. So he's now a member of AmSpirit Business Connections, which I think is great. I think he'll do really well through the organization. What I find is that, generally speaking, handymen get really busy, so busy that they can't stay with the organization. But that's okay. He's in, and it sounds like it's, my network's benefiting him, and his good deed certainly benefited me. So the point is that you don't really need a networking event to be networking. And to be quite honest, I really can't remember the last networking event I've been at. And I have to think about that. Yeah, I just, since the pandemic, my life is kind of headed into a different direction. I'm not swearing off. I'm not swearing off going to networking events, but what I am sort of just, I'm very bullish on just getting out and meeting people in lots of other ways, and I'll kind of give you my 2 cents on that. But there are certainly options for networking without networking events. The first is just, face-to-face meetings, either in person or doing Zoom calls. I generally have maybe on average 2 Zoom calls a day on average. Some days there's a lot more, some days there aren't any. But with people that I'm getting acquainted with, or with people that I am not necessarily getting acquainted with, but who I'm, just reconnecting with, or just, whatever. One of the things I said last week was relationships just don't happen. You have to build them. They just don't come out of nowhere. You have to build them. And so I'll have Zoom calls with people, one on one. I will get together for face-to-face meetings. I'm kind of sparing. I do that sparingly just because um, they take time, and I generally don't do that right out of the gate. And the reason I don't do it right out of the gate is, again, it takes time. It's a 90-minute ordeal. You're dropping what you're doing, you're getting in the car, you're getting somewhere, you're meeting somebody for a half hour, you're coming back and then re-gearing back up, and so it's 90 minutes. So I do those sparingly. Generally, I'll do those on a second time, kind of touching base with people. But the one-to-ones are certainly a great way. And if you are an introvert out there and you don't like going to networking events, you know what? There's nothing wrong with doing the one-to-one stuff. Nothing at all. People may think that it's less effective. I beg to differ. I think there's arguments both ways. It certainly can be effective. The other thing I suggest to people as far as getting networked without networking events is to get involved with the community. And there's lots of opportunities to get involved in the community. I'm going to tell a story here in a second, but I was part of the Ohio Business Brokers Association when I was back practicing law, and it was a great little community that I got involved with. And it certainly led to lots of business. It led to lots of wonderful contacts. But let me come back to getting involved in the community in a minute here. The other thing, which ties back into the Ohio Business Brokers Association, another way of getting networked without networking events is what I call thought leadership, doing things related to thought leadership. What's thought leadership? Getting out and giving a talk on whatever it is you do. And I'm not saying if you're a financial advisor being out there and trying to troll for clients, but what I what I am suggesting is being out there and just teaching people about things they should know. Here are the 10 things you need to know to retire by the time by 60. Whatever it is. And that's a great way to kind of get out and meet people. Years ago, when I was trying to build a law practice, I had an opportunity to speak to the Ohio Business Brokers Association. To be honest, I wasn't excited about it on the front end. Geez, I don't really need to be giving another speech, but I did. And lots of great things came from it. And I actually was involved in that organization for 3 years because I went out and gave a speech. I didn't get paid for the speech. And as I've gone through time with AmSpirit Business Connections, same sort of thing. It's I'll get out and get in the community and talk about not AmSpirit, but I'll talk about networking and networking best practices. Um, and what I found is that when I went out and I went into a company, for example, and I just talked about AmSpirit, let me tell you about how great we are, that nobody really cared. It was just an opportunity for people to play on their phones, go to the bathroom, doze off, whatever. But when I went in and I talked about networking, when I actually talked about networking, um, people wanted to talk to me afterwards. And it was very interesting. Um, it was kind of ironic that when I wasn't trying to sell it, that great things were coming from it. So, oh well. So get out, be a thought leader, get out into the community. We all have things to share. If speaking before others is not your thing, then go ahead and write articles, whatever you can do. Post on LinkedIn. Those are great ways to kind of get yourself out there. The other thing I recommend doing is maybe, if you can't find the events you want to go to, create your own. I know some people who've created their own events, and I'll kind of touch on that in a minute. But the other thing is just kind of being out there and socially interacting. You know, my wife and kids joke with me because nobody's a stranger. I'll talk with anybody. And I was at a soccer game over the weekend. Columbus has a professional Major League Soccer team, the Columbus Crew, Go Crew. And they have a team And I was at the game, and I gave my seat to my daughter, and my wife was sitting with my daughter, but there were empty seats just down in front of them. So I went and took a seat. And there was a guy who sat down next to me, and happened to be his seats. I was not in his seats, but I was next to his seats. So I'm going to get a chance to talk to him quite a bit. But we struck up a conversation. We were watching the game. Yeah, it's, we're cheering. It's fun. But just, what's his story? Are you from Columbus? A lot of people aren't. Most people aren't from Columbus. There's a story, and by golly, he had a story. It involved hockey. It involved minor league, semi-pro hockey, college hockey, and we just kind of talked back and forth. At one point, he asked what I did. I kind of muddled through. That, if you will. And I just then asked what he did. I wasn't going to bring it up. I don't like to bring it up, certainly in a conversation. I don't want to feel like I'm selling, right? But he brought it up. So I asked him, well, what is it that you do? And he shared what he was doing. And he then went on to say that, yeah, he's looking for a change. And he's looking to either get into banking or financial advising. Well, just so happens, I talked to somebody the day before who is looking to meet people who are interested in getting into financial advising. I know that another guy, a banker, who's more than happy to talk with banker types. So I gave him my card. I said, listen, reach out. I'll happily make some introductions for you. Now, I don't know where that goes, but back to my point, you don't need to go to networking events to get yourself networked. The other the other thing I suggest is making comments on people's social media posts, significant comments, not "Hey, good job" or something like that. Adding your 2 cents. What did you like about the post? Something like that. And you might not think things can come from this, but I interviewed on my podcast two young women. They wrote a book together, the LinkedIn branding book, by Michelle B. Griffin and Michelle J. Raymond. The Michelles, as they're known, Michelle 1 and 2. The interesting thing is Michelle B. Griffin. Michelle B. is in Pensacola, and Michelle J. is in Australia. They are 16 hours apart, maybe 17 hours apart. But at any rate, they one wrote a comment on the other one's post. Hey, very interesting. Let's have a call. They had a call. They hit it off. Decided, you know what, we really think alike. There's a lot of things that we can do together. So let's do something together. So again, you don't have to go to a networking event to get yourself networked. The Michelles, they have a thriving little business. There's only a small window every day that they can talk, and they talk, but essentially their business is going 24 hours a day because of that. Getting back to getting involved in the community, I'm going to add this to the stream real quick. The graphic doesn't fit. I need to adjust the graphic a little bit. But I talked earlier about if you can't find a community that you want to get into, then create your own community. And this is something I had created at the very beginning of the pandemic. It's a monthly call that I invite, that's open to any coach, consultant, author, podcaster, aspiring entrepreneurs. You can't read the whole thing. But we come together and we just quickly, over the course of an hour, you get into a breakout room, you learn about some people, you share about yourself and what you're looking for. And it's just been a wonderful way for me to meet people. I think I keep a tally on it. There have been over 300 people that have been through the networking hub over the last, since June of 2020. Met a lot of them, and many of them have networked off into me meeting other people. In other words, people that have not come into the networking hub that I've had an opportunity to meet. I have a franchisee in Pensacola, Florida, as a result of the networking hub. It's if you have an interest, it's free to participate. There's no cost. Certainly, your time is a cost. 7 p.m. Eastern U.S. Time. I open up the Zoom at 6:30 p.m. But just another example of just something that you can create your own network. And the beauty about creating your own network, as opposed to going to a networking event, is that when you go to a networking event, it's somebody else's party. I use that term loosely. It's somebody else's event, and you're stepping into their world and who they're inviting, which there are certainly benefits to that. But I hear people will complain that, yeah, there really wasn't my type of people there. Well, sometimes you need to build that which you want to be part of. And so I'm often a fan of just letting people or telling people, I should say, to go ahead and build their own network of sorts. What do they want it to be? If you're really keen on having a networking event or something along those lines. So again, there's information on the Networking Hub if you're so interested. So the point to all of this is that you don't need a networking event to get yourself networked. Again, there's a whole lot that can be done on your own.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.